Come. Every morning you wake up, whether you are conscious of it or not, you step into a battlefield of voices. Voices from yesterday's failures, voices from today's pressure, and voices from tomorrow's uncertainty. Come. If you do not intentionally declare what must rule your day, your environment will decide for you. Life does not respond to wishes, it responds to authority. Come, and authority is released through understanding and spoken alignment. That is why the morning is not just a time on the clock, it is a spiritual gate. Whoever controls the morning often controls the outcomes of the day. You must understand that silence in the morning is not humility. Many times it is surrender. Come. When you wake up and rush into activity without alignment, you allow circumstances to speak first. Declarations are not motivational talk. They are legal spiritual statements that place demands on your day. Words spoken from understanding are seeds planted into time. When you declare, you are not trying to convince God. You are positioning yourself to agree with eternal laws. Heaven responds to agreement, not noise. There is a reason this must be done alone. Crowds are good for celebration, but solitude is required for transformation. When you are alone, there is no performance, no comparison, no pressure to impress. Alone, your spirit becomes honest. Alone, your sensitivity increases. Many people are loud in public, but powerless in private. And that imbalance always produces a weak spiritual life. Come. The strength of your public victory is directly connected to the depth of your private discipline. Every morning, before the world places its weight on you, you must declare who you are, not how you feel. Feelings fluctuate. Come, but identity is constant. When you declare your alignment with purpose, come, you remind your soul that it is not permitted to lead, it must follow. The body wants comfort, the mind wants logic, but the spirit demands obedience. Declarations silence internal confusion and bring every part of you into divine order. You must declare direction, because confusion is not neutral, it is expensive. Confusion wastes time, drains energy, and opens doors to wrong decisions. When you speak clarity over your morning, you activate wisdom for the day. You are not saying everything will be easy. You are declaring that nothing will be wasted. Resistance may come, but resistance under alignment produces growth, not frustration. Do this consistently, not occasionally. Spiritual authority does not respond to emotional seasons, it responds to loss. Consistency trains your spirit to recognize instruction quickly. When you declare daily, come, your inner man becomes disciplined, your discernment sharpens, and your reactions change. Situations that once overwhelmed, you will begin to submit, because authority grows with repetition. Come. Declare strength even when your body feels weak. Fatigue is real, but it does not have the final say. Many people collapse not because they lack ability, but because they never learned how to draw strength before spending it. Morning declarations are how you load your spirit before the demands of the day arrive. When pressure comes, come. You are not trying to find strength. You are releasing what you already stored. Declare peace, because anxiety is a thief that steals productivity before work even begins. Peace is not the absence of problems, it is the presence of order within chaos. When you declare peace, you are setting emotional boundaries. You are telling your soul what it is allowed to respond to and what it must ignore. A peaceful mind hears instruction clearly, and clarity is a form of speed. Declare obedience. Many prayers fail not because they are wrong, but because the heart is resistant. Obedience is alignment in action. When you declare obedience in the morning, you soften your will ahead of instruction. This is powerful because when guidance comes, delay is removed. Speed in obedience preserves destiny. Declare separation. Not everything that demands your attention deserves your energy. Every morning, come. The world will try to recruit you into distractions disguised as urgency. When you declare separation, you give yourself permission to say no without guilt. Focus is not selfish. It is stewardship. Do this alone because solitude removes noise. Noise is not just sound, it is influence. Influences shape decisions. Decisions shape direction, and direction shapes destiny. Alone with God, your spirit recalibrates. Alone, you remember what truly matters. Alone, your assignments become clear and your priorities adjust. Understand this. You are not declaring to feel powerful. You are declaring because it is lawful. Spiritual systems respond to structure. When you wake up and speak alignment, you are enforcing order over time. Days that begin with order rarely end in regret. That if you skip this discipline, you may still survive, but survival is not the goal. Dominion is. You were not created to manage chaos endlessly. You were created to establish order. Morning declarations are how you take responsibility for your inner world before engaging the outer one. Come, so tomorrow morning, before messages, before noise, before movement, stand alone, speak deliberately, declare alignment, declare strength, declare clarity, declare obedience, not loudly for drama, but firmly with understanding. Do it until your spirit recognizes authority in your voice. Do it until your days begin to obey you. Come. The power of verbal declaration in shaping spiritual atmosphere and personal direction begins with the understanding that words are not merely sounds. They are carriers of authority and containers of intent. Every time a person speaks, something is released. Come, either permission or resistance, either alignment or disorder. Life consistently responds to what is spoken with understanding, not what is wished in silence. Many people hope for change but keep declaring the same limitations every day through careless speech. What you repeatedly say becomes what you repeatedly experience, because words frame perception and perception directs decisions. Spiritual atmosphere is not abstract. It is the unseen environment created by thoughts, beliefs, and spoken words. When a person declares intentionally, they are not trying to create reality from imagination. They are enforcing alignment with higher truths. Come, declarations function like commands that give direction to internal systems. Fear survives where it is tolerated by silence, but it weakens where truth is spoken. Confusion thrives where there is no clear verbal authority, but clarity is restored when words are spoken with conviction and consistency. Come, personal direction is often lost not because people lack vision, but because they allow conflicting voices to dominate their inner space. The mind absorbs what it hears most frequently. Especially from the mouth of the individual. When you speak deliberately, you are instructing your own soul. The soul does not lead, it follows what is reinforced. Verbal declaration becomes the steering mechanism that keeps the inner life aligned even when external circumstances are unstable. Without spoken alignment, emotions begin to lead, and emotions are unreliable guides. Words create agreement. And agreement creates permission. Many spiritual outcomes are delayed not because power is absent, but because agreement is missing. When a person consistently declares defeat, limitation, or fear, they unknowingly authorize those conditions to operate. On the other hand, When declarations are rooted in truth and spoken daily, they establish boundaries that conditions must respect. This is why environments change when people change their language. Atmospheres recognize authority faster than explanations. Verbal declaration also shapes expectation. Expectation is a powerful force that determines how situations are interpreted and handled. When someone declares peace, they begin to interpret pressure differently. When they declare strength, the challenges no longer feel like threats but assignments. Declarations train the mind to look for alignment instead of danger. This internal shift affects reactions, and reactions often decide outcomes more than circumstances themselves. Direction is sustained by repetition. One moment of clarity cannot sustain a lifetime of pressure. That is why declarations must be consistent. Each declaration reinforces a chosen direction, pushing back against distraction and emotional drift. Over time, the inner man becomes disciplined and decision-making becomes sharper. The person no longer reacts impulsively because their words have already established order. Stability is not accidental. That is spoken into existence through disciplined alignment. Verbal declaration also creates spiritual memory. What you say repeatedly becomes familiar to your spirit, and familiarity produces confidence. Confidence is not arrogance. It is clarity without hesitation. When challenges arise, a person who has been declaring truth does not scramble for answers, because their inner world already recognizes the language of authority. The mouth simply releases what the heart has stored over time. Many people underestimate this power because they look for dramatic manifestations instead of subtle consistency. Yet the greatest shifts often begin invisibly. The atmosphere changes first before results appear. Peace enters before solutions arrive. Strength manifests internally before external victory is seen. Declarations prepare the ground long before harvest is visible. Skipping this process leads to frustration because people expect outcomes without establishing foundations. Words also regulate identity. Confusion produces unstable direction. When a person does not verbally affirm who they are and what governs them, they subconsciously borrow identities from pain, failure, or public opinion. Declarations anchor identity in truth rather than experience. This anchoring prevents emotional highs from producing pride and emotional lows from producing despair. Stability is born when identity is consistently spoken, not occasionally remembered. That the discipline of verbal declaration is not about volume or emotion, but about understanding and authority. Loudness without alignment is noise, but quiet declarations with conviction reshape reality. Over time, the atmosphere responds, the mind cooperates, and direction becomes clear. What once felt forced begins to feel natural because order has been established internally. The power of verbal declaration lies in its ability to train the unseen before confronting the visible. Ensuring that when life responds, it responds to clarity rather than confusion. Morning alignment as a spiritual gateway for authority, clarity, and strength begins with the understanding that the early moments of the day are not neutral. When you wake up, your spirit is transitioning from rest into responsibility. And whatever gains access first often sets the tone for everything that follows. If the mind is immediately flooded with noise, pressure, or unresolved thoughts, disorder establishes itself quietly. Alignment in the morning is the deliberate act of restoring order before engagement, ensuring that your inner world is positioned correctly before external demands begin to speak. Authority is not something you suddenly remember in the middle of chaos, that it is something you establish before chaos has a chance to form. Morning alignment positions you in authority by reminding your spirit who leads and who follows. The body does not decide the pace of the day, and emotions do not determine direction. When alignment happens early, there the spirit takes its rightful place, and every other part of a person comes into submission. This is why those who skip alignment often feel reactive all day, while those who practice it move with intention and control. Clarity flows naturally from alignment. Confusion is not always caused by lack of information. Many times it is the result of misplacement. When priorities are not arranged properly, even simple decisions feel heavy. The morning is when mental traffic is lowest, making it the most effective time to establish order. Our alignment at this point clears mental clutter and sharpens discernment. Thoughts that once felt urgent begin to lose their grip, and what truly matters rises to the surface without strain. Strength is also drawn from alignment, not from rest alone. Rest refreshes the body, but alignment empowers the spirit. Many people wake up physically rested yet emotionally drained because they never take time to draw strength intentionally. Morning alignment is how inner strength is activated. It is the process of reconnecting with purpose, which is the deepest source of endurance. When purpose is clear, fatigue does not disappear, but it no longer controls behavior. The morning functions as a gateway because it determines access. Whatever is allowed into the heart early will influence reactions later. If fear enters first, it will color every interaction. If peace enters first, it will regulate responses under pressure. Alignment acts as a filter, deciding what is permitted to stay and what must leave. This is not about avoiding responsibility, but about preparing to carry it well. Many people wait for circumstances to improve before they feel aligned. But alignment is what gives the capacity to handle circumstances. Authority grows when alignment is practiced consistently. Over time, the inner man becomes trained to respond correctly, even under stress. This training does not happen accidentally. It happens through repeated morning discipline. Each day of alignment reinforces the previous one, creating a cumulative strength that cannot be shaken easily. Morning alignment also protects direction. Throughout the day, distractions compete for attention, often disguised as urgency. Without early alignment, it becomes difficult to distinguish between what is important and what is merely loud. Alignment sharpens focus, allowing a person to say no without guilt and yes without hesitation. Direction is preserved not by business, but by intentional clarity established before movement begins. Authority without clarity becomes harsh, and clarity without strength becomes fragile. Morning alignment balances all three. It softens the heart while strengthening resolve. It produces confidence without arrogance and humility without weakness. This balance is what allows a person to move through challenges without losing composure. They are not rushing to prove anything. They are moving from a settled place within. Over time, those who practice morning alignment notice a shift in how life responds to them. Situations that once overwhelmed them begin to submit more easily, not because the problems disappeared, but because their internal order increased. Pressure reveals structure. When alignment is present, pressure exposes strength instead of weakness. The greatest benefit of morning alignment is consistency. It removes the need to reset emotionally throughout the day because stability has already been established. Calm. The mind is less scattered, the emotions are less reactive, and decisions are made with greater confidence. Life still brings demands, but they are handled from a place of preparation rather than panic. Morning alignment is not a ritual done out of obligation. It is a strategic investment into authority, clarity, calm, and strength. Those who neglect it often spend their days recovering, calm, while those who practice it spend their days advancing. The difference is not talent or opportunity, but order established at the gateway of the day. The necessity of solitude to build intimacy, sensitivity. That spiritual accuracy begins with the understanding that isolation and solitude are not the same. Isolation is often imposed and produces weakness, but solitude is chosen and produces strength. Solitude is the intentional withdrawal from noise, influence, and distraction in order to hear clearly and align deeply. Without solitude, intimacy remains shallow because true intimacy requires attention, honesty, and unfiltered presence, all of which are impossible in crowded spaces. Intimacy grows where performance ends. In public spaces, there is always an audience even when it is subtle. The awareness of being seen shapes behavior, words, and even thoughts. Solitude removes this pressure, allowing the heart to speak without editing. In that private space, motives are revealed and intentions are purified. Many people think they know themselves, but it is solitude that exposes what truly governs the heart. This exposure is not for condemnation, but for correction and growth. Sensitivity is developed through stillness. The noise dulls perception over time, even when the noise seems harmless. The continuous stimulation trains the mind to expect constant input, making it difficult to recognize subtle impressions. The solitude restores sensitivity by slowing the inner pace. When external voices are silenced, internal awareness increases. Discernment sharpens not because new information is added, but because unnecessary interference is removed. Spiritual accuracy depends on clarity, and clarity depends on attention. In crowded environments, attention is divided. And divided attention produces distorted understanding. Solitude allows focus to return to what matters most. In that focused state, guidance becomes clear and direction more precise. Many mistakes are not made because people lack sincerity, but because they never created space to listen deeply. Solitude prevents unnecessary errors by aligning perception with truth rather than impulse. Intimacy also requires time. Quick moments do not build depth. Solitude creates the space for sustained engagement where understanding matures gradually. This depth produces stability. A person who regularly practices solitude is not easily shaken by external opinions because their inner convictions are well established. They are not borrowing confidence from applause. They are rooted in internal clarity. Their sensitivity is also about responsiveness. When awareness increases, reaction time improves. A sensitive spirit recognizes shifts early and adjusts quickly. Solitude trains this responsiveness by strengthening the connection between perception and obedience. Instead of reacting emotionally, the person responds intentionally. This ability is critical for navigating complex situations where emotional reactions can cause long-term damage. Spiritual accuracy is tested in decision making. Decisions made without solitude often carry hidden bias, emotional residue, or external pressure. Solitude allows these influences to surface and be addressed before action is taken. This produces cleaner decisions with fewer regrets. Accuracy is not perfection, it is alignment. Solitude increases alignment by reducing distortion. Many people avoid solitude because it confronts them with themselves. Distractions often serve as escapes from unresolved thoughts and emotions. Solitude removes those escapes, creating an opportunity for healing and realignment. Though uncomfortable at first, this process strengthens character and increases maturity. Avoiding solitude may feel easier, calm, but it always results in weaker inner structure. Intimacy, sensitivity, and accuracy are interconnected. Intimacy deepens trust, sensitivity refines perception, and accuracy ensures correct action. Solitude is the environment where all three are cultivated simultaneously. Without solitude, intimacy becomes routine, sensitivity becomes dull, and accuracy becomes inconsistent. With solitude, these qualities mature naturally over time. Those who value solitude often carry a quiet confidence. They are not easily impressed or intimidated because their reference point is internal rather than external. This stability allows them to lead effectively and serve wisely. They move with purpose, not urgency, and with clarity, not confusion. The discipline of solitude is not about withdrawal from responsibility, but preparation for it. It equips the inner man before public engagement. The strength developed in solitude becomes evident in public decisions, relationships, and leadership. What is refined in private is revealed in public. Solitude is not a luxury reserved for the few. It is a necessity for anyone who desires depth, accuracy, and sustained effectiveness. Those who neglect it may remain active, but activity without depth eventually leads to burnout. Solitude ensures that action flows from understanding rather than pressure. Creating a life marked by consistency and clarity. Consistency in personal declarations as a weapon against fear, delay, and confusion begins with the understanding that spiritual authority responds to patterns, not moments. Occasional declarations may bring temporary motivation, but they do not establish dominance over internal resistance or external pressure. Consistency is what transforms words from sound into structure. When declarations are repeated with understanding, they begin to shape the inner environment in a way that emotions and circumstances can no longer easily override. Fear thrives in uncertainty and silence. When a person declares truth only when they feel strong, fear learns to wait for moments of weakness. Consistent declarations remove that opportunity by reinforcing authority regardless of emotional state. Over time, the mind becomes familiar with the language of courage and stability. Fear may still attempt to appear, but it loses influence because it no longer sounds convincing. What the mind hears most often becomes what it believes most easily. Delay is often the result of internal hesitation rather than external opposition. Many people interpret delay as a lack of opportunity, when in reality it is a lack of readiness. Consistent declarations build readiness by aligning the inner man with purpose repeatedly. Each declaration strengthens resolve, reducing indecision. When opportunities arise, the person is already positioned to act because the internal agreement has been established over time. Delay loses power when hesitation is removed. Confusion grows where direction is not reinforced. One moment of clarity is rarely enough to sustain focus through prolonged pressure. Daily declarations act as anchors, pulling the mind back to alignment whenever it drifts. This repetition trains the brain to recognize order quickly. Instead of reacting to every new piece of information, the person evaluates situations through a stable internal framework. Confusion weakens because it has no space to dominate. Consistency also creates internal discipline. Their discipline is not punishment, it is structure that preserves strength. When declarations become part of daily practice, they condition the inner life to respond with obedience rather than resistance. The person no longer negotiates with fear or doubt, they recognize it and move forward anyway. This ability to act despite internal noise is a mark of maturity. Fear often disguises itself as logic. Without consistent declarations, it becomes difficult to distinguish between genuine caution and disguised insecurity. Repeated alignment sharpens discernment, making it easier to identify when fear is attempting to influence decisions. Once exposed, fear loses its persuasive power. The individual becomes less reactive and more intentional. Delay also feeds on inconsistency. When actions and words do not align regularly, momentum is lost. Consistent declarations create momentum by reinforcing direction daily. Momentum reduces resistance. What once felt heavy becomes manageable because the inner man is already moving forward. Progress accelerates when internal alignment is maintained. Confusion is not always loud. Sometimes it appears as mental fatigue. When the mind is constantly switching between beliefs, it becomes exhausted. Consistent declarations simplify the inner narrative. Instead of debating identity, purpose, and direction daily, the person affirms them regularly. This reduces cognitive strain and frees energy for productive action. Another effect of consistency is confidence. Confidence is built through familiarity, not sudden inspiration. Repeated declarations make truth familiar, and familiarity breeds trust. When challenges arise, the person does not search for reassurance, they respond from what has been reinforced consistently. This stability influences how others respond as well, because confidence communicates authority without aggression. Consistency also protects against regression. Emotional setbacks are inevitable, but they do not have to result in long-term decline. When declarations are consistent, recovery is quicker. The person returns to alignment faster because the pathway is well established. Without consistency, setbacks become prolonged because the inner structure is weak. Many underestimate this principle because they look for immediate results. However, the most effective weapons often work quietly over time. Consistent declarations reshape belief systems, rewire responses. They're an established order. The results may not be dramatic at first, but they are durable. The weapon of consistency does not depend on mood, environment, or external affirmation. It functions because it is rooted in discipline. Discipline outlasts emotion. This is why consistent declarers remain stable under pressure while others fluctuate. Consistency in personal declarations is not about repeating words mindlessly. It is about reinforcing alignment intentionally. Each repetition strengthens authority, weakens fear, shortens delay, and dissolves confusion. Over time, the inner world becomes ordered, and an ordered inner world produces decisive, effective action in the outer world. Understanding identity before activity to avoid striving and burnout begins with the realization that many people are exhausted not because they are doing too much, but because they are doing too much without clarity of who they are. Activity without identity creates pressure because the person is trying to earn value through performance. When identity is unclear, work becomes a means of validation rather than expression. This produces striving, a restless effort driven by fear of inadequacy rather than purpose. Identity answers the question of position, not function. Before asking what must be done, identity establishes who is doing it and from what authority. When this order is reversed, activity becomes burdensome. The person measures worth by results, approval, or comparison. This mindset is dangerous because results fluctuate, approval is unstable, and comparison is endless. Without identity, the rest feels undeserved, and stopping feels like failure, which accelerates burnout. Striving is often mistaken for diligence. Diligence flows from purpose, but striving flows from insecurity. When identity is secure, effort is focused and sustainable. When identity is weak, effort becomes frantic and excessive. The person says yes to everything because saying no feels like loss. Over time, this leads to emotional exhaustion, resentment, and loss of passion. Burnout is rarely sudden. It is the accumulation of unresolved misalignment. Understanding identity establishes boundaries. Boundaries are not limitations, they are protections. When a person knows who they are, they also know what they are not responsible for. This clarity prevents overcommitment. Many people burn out because they carry assignments that were never meant for them. Identity filters opportunity. It allows discernment to operate, separating purpose from distraction. Activity without identity also produces inconsistency. Motivation rises and falls with external feedback. Praise produces energy, criticism drains it. This emotional dependency makes sustainability impossible. Identity stabilizes motivation because it is internal. When identity is clear, work continues whether recognition comes or not. This consistency preserves strength over time. Burnout is also linked to the inability to rest. Rest requires trust. A person must trust that value is not lost when activity stops. Without identity, rest feels risky. The mind stays active even when the body pauses. Understanding identity gives permission to rest because worth is no longer tied to output. Rest then becomes restoration rather than guilt-filled inactivity. Identity also determines pace. Not every season requires the same speed. When identity is unclear, people rush through seasons they should learn from and linger in seasons they should leave. This mismatch creates frustration. Identity brings alignment between season and action. The person moves when it is time and waits when necessary without anxiety. Another source of burnout is comparison. Without identity, comparison becomes a measuring tool. The person evaluates progress based on others rather than purpose. This creates unnecessary pressure and self-doubt. Identity anchors focus inward, reducing the influence of comparison. Progress is measured by obedience and growth rather than visibility. Understanding identity also refines ambition. Ambition without identity is dangerous because it pushes without direction. Identity-centered ambition is healthy because it is guided. It seeks impact, not applause. This distinction protects the heart from disappointment and pride. Both extremes lead to burnout in different ways. Activity becomes joyful when it flows from identity. Joy is not the absence of effort, it is the absence of pressure. When a person knows who they are, effort feels meaningful rather than draining. Even challenging tasks carry a sense of fulfillment because they align with purpose. Burnout often reveals an identity crisis rather than a workload problem. Reducing activity without addressing identity only delays collapse. Understanding identity reorders priorities. This simplifies decisions and restores balance. It shifts the question from how much can I do to what should I do. Identity before activity is not about passivity, it is about precision. Precision conserves energy. When actions are aligned, less effort produces greater impact. This efficiency preserves emotional and spiritual health. Ultimately, identity is the foundation that carries activity. Without it, even success becomes exhausting. With it, effort becomes sustainable and growth becomes steady. Understanding identity before activity protects the inner life, ensures longevity, and transforms work from a burden into an expression of purpose. Spiritual laws respond more to alignment and obedience than emotional intensity, because spiritual systems are governed by order, not impulse. Emotion can create urgency, but urgency alone does not guarantee accuracy. Many people equate strong feelings with spiritual effectiveness. Yet intensity without alignment often produces exhaustion rather than results. Alignment places a person in agreement with established principles, and obedience activates those principles consistently, regardless of emotional state. Emotional intensity is unstable by nature. It rises and falls depending on circumstances, energy levels, and environment. When spiritual actions are driven primarily by emotion, consistency becomes impossible. On strong days, effort is high, but on weak days, discipline disappears. Spiritual laws, however, require continuity. They respond to patterns of obedience rather than sporadic bursts of passion. This is why long-term growth is usually quiet and steady rather than dramatic. Alignment means being positioned correctly in purpose, timing, and posture. It is possible to be sincere and still be misaligned. Sincerity does not replace order. When alignment is absent, emotional effort is wasted. Obedience, on the other hand, does not require excitement. It requires submission to instruction. This submission creates access to results because it honors structure. Many delays occur not because people lack desire, but because they resist instruction. Emotional intensity can mask disobedience by creating the illusion of devotion. A person may feel deeply committed while still ignoring necessary adjustments. Spiritual laws are not moved by feelings, they are activated by compliance. When obedience is present, results follow even if the person feels weak or uncertain. Alignment also protects against burnout. Emotional intensity consumes energy quickly without structure. It drains the inner life. Obedience conserves energy because it removes unnecessary struggle. When a person stops fighting order and begins cooperating with it, effort becomes efficient. Strength is preserved because resistance is reduced. Another danger of emotional intensity is misinterpretation. Strong emotions can distort perception, leading to impulsive decisions. Alignment restores clarity by anchoring action in truth rather than feeling. Obedience slows the pace just enough to ensure accuracy. This prevents mistakes that emotional reactions often produce. Spiritual growth matures when obedience becomes normal rather than heroic. Many people only obey when they feel inspired. This creates inconsistency. When obedience is practiced daily, it becomes part of identity. The person no longer debates instruction internally. This stability produces predictable outcomes. Alignment also builds trust. Trust is developed through repeated obedience, not emotional display. When a person consistently aligns with instruction, confidence grows. They begin to understand that results are not dependent on how they feel, but on what they follow. That this realization removes pressure to perform emotionally. Emotional intensity often seeks immediate results. Obedience is patient. Spiritual laws operate on timing as well as action. When a person obeys without demanding instant feedback, growth occurs beneath the surface. Eventually, results appear without strain. Many misunderstand faith as emotional certainty. True faith is expressed through obedience even when certainty is absent. Alignment is a choice made in the absence of feeling. This choice is powerful because it demonstrates trust in principle rather than sensation. Obedience also refines character. Emotional intensity focuses on experience, but obedience shapes behavior. Behavior shapes habits, and habits shape destiny. This process is slow but reliable. Spiritual laws reward reliability. When alignment is present, even small actions carry weight. Without alignment, even great effort feels heavy. This explains why some achieve lasting impact quietly, while others struggle loudly. The difference is not passion but order. Spiritual systems respond to obedience because obedience honors authority. Authority is not impressed by emotion. It is respected through submission. Alignment places a person under covering rather than in competition. This position allows support rather than resistance. Understanding this principle removes frustration. Instead of chasing emotional highs, the person commits to daily obedience. Peace increases because pressure decreases. Confidence grows because outcomes become predictable. Spiritual laws are consistent. When alignment and obedience are maintained, results follow naturally. Emotional intensity may fluctuate, but obedience sustains progress over time. This approach produces stability, maturity, and lasting effectiveness. In summary, a powerful and effective spiritual life is not built on occasional inspiration or emotional intensity, but on intentional alignment, disciplined obedience, and consistent personal practice. Declaring truth daily establishes authority over the inner world before external pressures arise. Morning alignment sets order at the gateway of the day, positioning the spirit to lead with clarity and strength. Solitude deepens intimacy, sharpens sensitivity, and refines accuracy, ensuring that decisions are made from understanding rather than noise. Consistent declarations become a weapon that dismantles fear, shortens delay, and dissolves confusion by reinforcing direction over time. Understanding identity before activity protects the heart from striving and burnout, allowing effort to flow from purpose rather than insecurity. Ultimately, spiritual laws respond to alignment and obedience more than emotion, rewarding those who honor order with stability, growth, and lasting impact. When these principles are practiced faithfully, life shifts from reaction to dominion, from pressure to purpose, and from exhaustion to sustained effectiveness.